Welcome to That's Life. I'm Marcia Boyles, and as always, I'd like to introduce my partner, Kathleen Taylor, our medical center social worker, clinical social worker.
Yes.
Kathleen, this program that we're having today is a follow-up on the last program that we had, in which we talked about the different kinds of stress and reactions to stress. And we've got two skits today that I think will be kind of fun and interesting, and I should just very quickly point out what those are. The first skit that we'll be doing is Carol Tippett in a soliloquy speaking to her dog Cooper. And Cooper is also one of the stars, Cooper being my dog,
Cooper, yeah.
my Cooper. And Carol is extremely stressed, and you'll get the picture very quickly with that. And the second skit then is Eloise Stinger and I talking, having lunch together and talking about losing friends here, which is kind of a constant. And then your perspective on this, which I know will be extremely helpful. Your insights as a clinical social worker are always right on target and always helpful. So that's what we will be doing today.
Yeah, this is good. This is good because we know that stress is definitely something that is part of our lives, and people are feeling it now maybe more than in other times of their life for sure. So we've talked about it sort of on Vantage Point. We've talked about it kind of academically, but this is really going to show people what stress can look like. So I think that's what is going to be really, really interesting.
Yes, I would hope that we can, and yes, I think you're right. I think these are particularly stressful times. Well, Kathleen, with that, then we'll stop and have the skits.
All right.
There, Cooper. I finished it. I just emailed my son Tom and my daughter Sally. I've been so worried about them ever since Sally started having health problems, serious ones. So I'm trying to make things better. I sent them an email with pieces of advice, or two. I sent them an email yesterday as well. And come to think of it, the day before that also. I just am so worried about them. I think maybe I should call them and find out if they have gotten my emails and see if they're taking my advice. Of course, I don't want to meddle. You understand that, don't you? Oh, I think I'll just stay in the apartment tonight and not go to dinner with my usual group. Maybe Tom or Sally might call. I have plenty of snacks. Cheese, crackers, cookies, ice cream, I think. Oh, I know, Cooper. I'm skipping dinner again tonight. Skipping everything. Exercise class, book club. I'm skipping most everything these days. But I'm just so worried. I'm too worried to be doing anything or being with my friends. Oh, and my hair. It's been such a long time since I had my hair done. Maybe I'll do that next week. Maybe I won't be so worried next week. Oh, and also, Tina might call tonight. The last time, you know Tina, she's my youngest. She's also your favorite of my daughters. Last time we talked, she told me she had listened to the Kavanaugh hearings, like we all did. She told me that she was very moved by Dr. Ford's testimony. She went on to say that there was something she wanted to talk to me about when we had time for a much longer conversation. She said it was about something that happened to her that she had never talked to anyone about. She said that it was something which happened at a party when she was a student at the university. Oh, Cooper, I'm so worried about what she might want to tell me. Of course, I want her to be able to talk to me about anything, but I'm afraid that what she might tell me might be something that I can't make better for her or I can't fix. Oh, Cooper, these times we're living in. Oh. I can't even stand to pick up the paper anymore. Or worse, listen to the news on the television in the evening, something I've done over and over for years. Oh. And you know, Cooper, last week I watched a PBS documentary on climate change. Oh, it was so disturbing to hear about how carbon emissions are increasing all the time, and the rainforests are being destroyed one after another, leaving this planet in a situation of irreversible climate change. Oh, Cooper, what kind of planet are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren? Oh, it's just so disturbing. I just wish there was something I could do to fix it. Why isn't there something we can do to fix things? Oh, Cooper, I just have all these thoughts going around in my head, around the same pathway endlessly, never stopping, never slowing down. Oh, it's kind of like the musical carousel our children used to ride, round and round and round. Oh, Cooper, I'm just so worried. I'm so fretful. I just don't know what to do. I wish I liked wine.
Hi, Katie. I'm so sorry I'm late.
Hi, Nancy. Well, I'm just glad we could get together for lunch today. You're looking very nice. You're all dressed up today.
Yes, I've just come from a memorial service at the chapel for my friend and neighbor, Joanne. You met her at my apartment one time. We'd become really close friends, especially after her husband died. And we watched each other's backs. You know, we had each other's keys. We'd talk to each other's children when they came to visit. Got a meal or the mail when one of us wasn't feeling well. She was truly we were very close to one another. And I actually saw her more than I saw my own children because they're so very busy. She became just like family to me, and I'm going to miss her terribly. It's really hard. I'm very sad and very depressed. And it's not like this is the only time. I've been to 3 memorial services in the past month. It's really overwhelming and depressing, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be very good company today.
Oh, Nancy, I absolutely understand. You know, I've been here a few more years than you have. You've been here almost 10 years.
Yes.
I've been here a few more years than you, and at this point, I have more friends who have passed on, who are not living, than I have friends who are actually living here. And I know how hard it is. My good lost friends are with me in my head much of the time. Mm-hmm. I see them in meetings they used to attend, and down in the dining room, especially in the hallways. Oftentimes these days I'll go to greet somebody in the hallway and I'll think it's one of my old friends.
Oh my.
And it will be somebody else entirely. So I understand. It really is hard. I think all I can do is be grateful I had my friends, grateful for the memories we had, but I know how hard it is.
Yeah. That was a very vivid description. Thank you. It helps me a little bit. I know how much I will miss all of my lost friends, especially Joanne, and I just wish everything could say the same. And sometimes I don't want to make new friends. There's a lot of trouble, a lot of effort. It hardly seems worth it. But then I meet some of the great folks here, and after a while we do become friends. But I really have to work at it. I really have to work on keeping myself open to new things.
Yes, I understand. I thrive on making new friends, and I find people here have fascinating backgrounds. So often they just have done such interesting things. Don't you find that?
I do find it. I do. There are really some fabulous people here. Well, let's drink to my friend Joanne and to all our friends who are no longer with us.
Drink to old friends and drink to new friends and new challenges too.
Good job, you guys. Some major league acting there.
Well, thank you. We had fun doing it. Yes, Kathleen, I think our design here, or our objective with these skits, was to show stress in various forms.
Right.
One sort of extreme form and one, I think, kind of normal form.
Something that we all experience regularly.
I think Carol called the skit that Eloise and I did the most relatable that we have done.
Yeah, yeah, certainly something that a lot of our residents have gone through or experienced in one way or the other, for sure. And I don't know about yours, Carol, in terms of relatable. It definitely shows, the extreme. What can happen when you go into stress overload. So which one do we want to talk about first, do you think?
Let's start with Carol's. That certainly was the most extreme.
Yeah. Well, I think probably the first thing that comes to everybody's mind is, are you kidding me? How would somebody get like that? I think that it does seem kind of out there, but in reality, it's possible that people can feel that stuck. And I think that was, what we were trying to capture a little bit is what happens when you have stress over time, and then how that affects your way of thinking, and then it kind of circles around on itself like the racing thoughts and like the carousel and all of that, to where you can't get yourself out of that situation. You feel trapped. I think that when I listened to your character, Carol, it was like I felt like that person felt like she had to stay there and worry or the world was going to fall apart. That it was her way of controlling her life, and it was almost like her 24/7 job to worry.
She was and she couldn't fix it, and so it just worried the heck out of her that she couldn't fix it.
Yeah, she couldn't fix it, but she had to keep trying.
I never thought about her that sort of feeling like her job, but that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get into that mode. We know that stress is a natural reaction to a perceived threat. It's that fight or flight reaction, and her way of trying to control it, that character's way of trying to control it, was to just keep trying to figure it out. But as they said, how was that working for you? Not so well. Not so well. But in the meantime,
does that take a long time to evolve? Normally,
I think it does. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when we say long time. Kind of the time frame that
days,
you're talking
weeks,
about.
months, kind of thing.
But I think it's insidious in that it builds on itself. So you start to keep to yourself more. You have less feedback. Her only feedback loop was her own head, and it wasn't going anywhere. So she wasn't getting any feedback from friends. I don't know how.
Or Cooper.
Cooper wasn't saying much, so it was, I don't know if anybody was saying to her, are you okay? What's going on?
I think in preparing to do this character, my concern was how in the world would one self-diagnose this?
Good point. I think at that point you really, really can't. I think it would be really, really hard. I would hope that there would be somebody in that person's life a child or a friend who would go, the direction you're going in is really not very healthy. So, to kind of make some suggestions.
You think the absence of all the activities, not going to exercise class, not going to book club, and that somebody on the outside would begin to say something's wrong here?
Yeah.
You think that that would happen?
Yeah. I mean, I would hope so. I don't know. Do you feel like, the residents, I feel like the residents are pretty sensitive to each other. So if you have a friend and you notice that your friend is, keeping more to themselves, or, kind of entrenched in negative thinking, or not doing the things that they would normally be doing, like getting out to different groups or whatever, that someone might gently say, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what's going on? And help them, maybe to give them a perspective. I think that that's sort of what's happened with your character, is they've lost their perspective. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what we say about stress is that we do always have a lot of stress, but it's how we react to the stress, that ends up with us going kind of, in a positive or a negative way. So
I think my question might be, if I were to say to Carol, gosh, I don't see you anymore at dinner. Mm-hmm. And she would, I'm sure, say yes. But would that help her then be able to interrupt that cycle?
Maybe, but maybe it would also take a little bit more, what's going on, as opposed to, just I don't see you, trying to prompt mm-hmm. a little bit more mm-hmm. of awareness about what might be going on with her.
Although I think for some of us, if someone said something just as Marcia indicated, that I know for me, good. If somebody said that to me, I would say, "Oh, maybe other people are noticing something that I'm not paying attention to, mm-hmm. and maybe I should pay attention to that."
Yeah. That might. I mean, that would be great. I mean, mm-hmm. that's what we're all looking for, is to be able to help each other out in some way. And just sort of jumping to the other skit. Because that yours was more, Carol, about sort of a person being stuck and not being able to get out of that negative stress overload. And then your two characters, Eloise, your character was feeling badly, mm-hmm. Feeling depressed, feeling sad by some of the things that were happening, all the losses. And Marcia's character was able to give another perspective and kind of say, you were saying, I just don't know if I want to make any new friends, it's mm-hmm. too painful. But Marcia's character was able to kind of balance that thinking and give you a little bit more of a positive way of framing mm-hmm. the experience. So at the end, you guys were kind of toasting not only to friends that were lost, but also to new friends. And that was a really good example of how people can respond to stress in a more positive way. So you really did, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but did a really good job of putting out kind of the two different ways that people can respond to stress.
I think that's right, and that was intentional mm-hmm. To do it that way. And I think the other thing is that because those of us who have lived here for any length of time, this is very real.
Yeah.
I mean, mm-hmm. this is one of the stressors that we all feel here. We
Absolutely.
All lose friends here after a period of time. Mm-hmm. So it absolutely is a major issue.
And making new friends is difficult in any situation, but there's also that feeling of not wanting to make a friend who is then going to leave you. Mm-hmm. It's a combination. It's a risk.
It's a risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All the time. Life mm-hmm. is a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's...
and it becomes more and more comfortable to
not
narrow.
Take the risk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's true. But again, it's still weighing the costs and the benefits.
Exactly.
So, I don't take the risk. I stay home
then
by
I become
myself.
Isolated. Precisely.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't feel good either. Mm-hmm. So, you do try to... And if you're able to think those things through logically and rationally with the help of maybe some good friends, mm-hmm. then that's really the best case scenario. If you try to solve it on your own sometimes and get caught in those you get caught
in the negativity of the constant.
Yeah.
And I do think sometimes when people are Carol's character, mm-hmm. Sometimes people avoid people who are so negative,
Oh,
because it's so sad, and it's hard it's hard to find a way to help them move out of that.
Yeah,
It's easier just to ignore.
yeah.
Well, it's also difficult because I think for some of us, we really don't know how to handle a situation like that. We don't feel like we have the
Right.
professional
We're not the
expertise to do the right thing, and we're afraid to do the wrong thing that might make it worse.
Yeah, no,
And we don't
and-
know how serious it is.
Right.
We don't
Right.
know.
I mean, I think, try and see what happens for sure. A lot of times you might actually, be very successful. That person just, as you said, needs to hear from somebody else what their perception is of what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, it does get tricky when you feel like people are really becoming very depressed or very anxious or really kind of in that downward spiral that they might need some professional
Or
help.
you yourself may recognize that you
In
just
yourself.
cannot get out of this. I mean, my sense was that Carol's character really, she was fairly cognizant of what was going on, that she was in this kind of a rut, but she did not know how to get out of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I
Didn't
think
you sense
very,
that?
very definitely. I think this character really did not know how to correct a situation. All she knew how to do was to keep fretting about it.
Exactly.
And it was you had the sense that it was just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
Now, what would intervention look like?
From what standpoint?
Well,
from
the
a
standpoint
professional,
of-
a professional intervention or a
professional
friend's intervention?
I mean, how, other than friends or family pointing out that the person seemed to be isolating and so forth, but I think she had an awareness of that anyway. How else could she get out of that?
Well, I mean, we're kind of talking about if a professional intervention would be the better way to do things.
Would it be needed? I mean, would you sense that if she couldn't get out of that?
Well, I sort of don't think that you have to be in real dire straits to seek out professional help.
Better do it earlier.
So I
do it earlier,
will
yeah.
say that, at any point, professional feedback and, different kinds of strategies that professionals have to be able to help you to see what you're doing a little bit more clearly can be of benefit.
So if she'd had intervention a bit earlier, it might have helped.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would help at any time, but the fact that she's really stuck, probably may mean that there are other things going on that are maybe not apparent from what we heard about in her story either. I mean, that was all kind of what's going on right now, what's current, but then a lot of what we know about stress is that it can trigger past life experiences as well. And those past life experiences may be more complicated, and those stories are usually will benefit from having a professional. It can be trauma, it can be other life experiences that you maybe never were able to resolve, and you're carrying with you. So then, when these other stresses start to trigger those feelings, it just gets all very overwhelming.
One thing I think the skit did not demonstrate is that when stress reaches these levels, it can impact other health issues.
Oh my
Is that
goodness.
not true?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Significantly so. I mean, it's wear and tear on your body. All those stress hormones just sort of pumping into your body all the time really create a lot of wear and tear on your vital organs, actually. So people that have cardiac problems, people that have other kinds of chronic conditions like breathing problems, respiratory problems, diabetes, all kinds of different neurological disorders, that can really exacerbate those conditions and make them a lot more difficult too. So yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say not just emotional, because emotional is sufficiently, worth taking account of, but the physical part for sure too.
Oh, that's a good point, Carol. And no, we didn't really address that. Although if she only eats crackers and ice cream.
Well, yeah, that was actually something I thought of too, is
Yeah.
because all that stuff that she was eating, not good for your mood.
Right.
All those carbs,
Yeah.
you know, because that's what we're really talking about, is how to kind of balance your mood and regulate your mood. And food intake does have something to do with it.
No exercise and terrible nutrition.
Yeah, yeah, definitely contributing to it. So, yeah, she was, you know, definitely not doing yourself any favors at that point.
Yeah, she definitely needed help.
Yeah, that was certainly my sense of it too.
What would help look like?
What would help look like? Well, it would look like coming in to a professional and just talking with them about what was going on, kind of trying to look at what that own person's unique reactions are to stress, because you've heard me say before that stress really is how the person perceives it. That you might have somebody who looks like, you know, they're under a lot of stress, you know, from your standpoint, who is telling you, no, I'm fine, and they actually mean it. They're not just saying, oh, I'm fine, but that they really aren't experiencing stress, where somebody else could be having some problems that you might think look kind of minor, and they're, you know, it feels catastrophic to them. So it really is about perceived stress more than, you know, anything that you could, other than a huge, you know, catastrophe that might be occurring, you know, anything that you would necessarily be able to appreciate from the outside. So it really is about how that person is responding to their stressors, identifying their stressors, figuring out how they're responding. A lot of times we have particular thoughts that, you know, that we react, when we react to a certain situation, they're thoughts that maybe are, you know, coming from other experiences, childhood experiences, you know, something bad's happening. Oh no, you know, I shouldn't be losing control. What's wrong with me? You know, there's something wrong with me. And then you just sort of go off into that feeling of self-doubt. I mean, there's just a million different responses that people can have, but you kind of have to explore those, unpack those experiences, as we say, you know, and really kind of go a little deeper, because a lot of times that's what's going on. And then once you've kind of figured out what the person's thinking, help them be able to maybe change the way that they're thinking about a particular situation, or change their behaviors in response to those situations. Just help them be overall more aware of what they're doing, and then teach some adaptive behaviors, with, you know, stress reduction kinds of things, different kinds of breathing exercises, just different ways that people can help relax and be aware of how they're carrying stress and tension in their bodies.
And would some of that help might be in encouraging the individual to establish a kind of a schedule of making sure that they do, keeping a calendar and making sure they do go to exercise class, and make sure they do go to book club and do get walks in and that sort of thing? Is that the kind of thing that might be recommended?
It would depend on the person, because a calendar might make somebody feel really stressed. So it really is just whatever works for that particular person. But to be mindful of that, and to be intentional, and to take seriously, you know, the idea that you are reacting to stress. That's really kind of the core awareness that we would like people to walk out the door with, is that you really have to take this seriously, and know what stress feels like in your body. You know when you're starting to feel tension, or that your breathing is getting shallow, or that, you know, you're not able to think clearly. You know what the signs and symptoms are of a stress overload. That's the beginning, or that's, you know, one of the things that we want people to be able to know after they're done working with somebody.
And at what point is it appropriate for a family member or a friend to talk with a social worker or someone about someone else who is going through something like this, but is not ready to realize it themselves and move ahead?
Yeah, that's a little bit trickier.
Exactly.
Because you really can't engage somebody in therapy if they're not willing to be engaged.
Right.
So that person has to come to you willingly,
Right.
ready to commit their time and their energy to making those positive changes in their
But if we
life.
were to see someone really self-isolating to the becoming a very different person than they had been in the past, is it then appropriate to talk with someone? To say, look, my neighbor, you know, is not doing anything anymore.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for me as a neighbor?
I don't know,
or
that is tricky.
I know, that's why I'm
what
asking.
I would say is, as a mental health professional, there's nothing that I can do.
Right.
If you come to me, there's nothing that I can
Okay.
do. If you feel like you can talk to that person and encourage them to see somebody, then that would be really good. Or if you know their family and maybe their family has some influence, but you do, you know, whatever it is that you can do to help them, you know, realize that there would be some benefit to getting help. But also, you yourself can get really invested
Precisely.
in fixing that problem, which is the other side of it, is that you really can't force a person to do something
Right.
against their will. So you really have to just encourage them.
Okay.
Well, it looks like we're being asked to wrap up.
I see that we are.
That was a good question.
Yeah, very good. This is such a good subject. We could go on forever, I'm sure, but
This was very helpful, Kathleen. I think all of us probably at some stages in our lives have gotten very stressed over issues, and I think this program really put some of this into perspective for us, and particularly with stressors that we're having right now, many of us here. So
yeah, definitely.
thanks.
Stress is with us, that's for sure.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
At all
Thanks.
different levels.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks.